Essential workers and low-income Australians are being offered discounted car loans by the federal government. The only catch is the vehicles must be electric.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Aussie Ideas Man. I saw this news article on Brisbane's Channel 9 News last night, which was the 19th of December. I personally disagree with a lot of what it says, and so I decided to make my own video and give a fair bit more detail into what the article is about. I find the article is too brief, is poorly researched, and is not only misleading in general, but is another example of the government being unfair in how it distributes its money to the people. It quite often does this, and it's done it again. It messes everything up that it puts its hand to. And its motive isn't to help a low socio-economic group, or whatever group they choose, a small percentage of the population. It's not to help them. It is to feather their own nest. They make tens of thousands of dollars in taxes from sales of cars, any cars, but EVs being more expensive, they make more money. And the pittance that they are giving to the bank is nowhere near the tens of thousands of dollars that they are raking in. They are just feathering their nest. And so I'm doing this to entertain people, but also to make them think for themselves. In this day and age, very few people are capable of thinking for themselves. So let's get into it.
Electric cars from all over the world are landing on our shores in their thousands, and now the government is baiting Australians into them with the promise of cheap loans.
Well, what's good for the planet is good for your pocket. 1 in 3 Australians are thinking about an electric vehicle as their next car.
Well, going back to electric vehicles are landing on our shores from all over the world, it's not quite right. There's very few parts of the world that make electric vehicles, mostly China, but when you consider all over the world, it's a big stretch to say they're coming from all over the world. In fact, Volkswagen, the largest auto group in the world, does not have a Volkswagen electric vehicle to date, and EVs have been coming out for more than a decade. Volkswagen does not have anything, not the ID3, the ID4, not the Buzz, although I hear it's coming out. So's Christmas. They have nothing. But aside from that, Chris Bowen's 1 in 3 people are thinking about an EV as their next car is absolute nonsense. And it does come from a survey, but it is a faked survey done by people that want to promote the industry. It's not independently done, and it is just ridiculous. If you look at one of the many articles that are his source material, we'll take this one from The Driven. 1/3 of all Australians plan to buy an electric vehicle within the next 5 years. Okay, all Australians, that's 25 million people probably. 1/3 of 24 is 8 million people. So they intend within 5 years to sell 8 million EVs. Later you'll notice that they actually sold just under 83,000 EVs in their best year ever. 83,000 in 2024. In 5 years, that's going to go up to 8 million. I don't think so. This is rubbery figures. This is lies, damn lies, and statistics in action. So it says these are the main findings from the Future Forecast Report 2024, published this week by EV Networks, Australia's largest fast EV charging network. So it's an EV charging network that is running the show. That's reason right there to dismiss the whole thing. Get somebody independent. Electric vehicles are no longer a thing of the distant future. They are becoming a tangible reality for Australian drivers. No, it's a thing of the distant future, believe me. Our report showcases the evolving mindset towards sustainable transportation, said Chris Mills, CEO of EV Networks. Their report is fudged. The report, which investigates the shifting landscape of Australian driving habits and the accelerating adoption of EVs, found that a few specific considerations are driving thoughts of purchasing an EV. While it is unclear at this stage how many respondents EV is basing its findings on, here's another reason to ditch the whole thing. It found that 70% of those considering purchasing an EV cited cost savings as a main reason behind their thinking. Other factors included environmental benefits, energy efficiency, and quiet transport. Consumers are increasingly recognising the noticeable benefits of electric vehicles, not just for their wallets but also for the environment, said Mills. This increasing is very, very slow. And the trend at the moment is for mild hybrids and plug-in hybrids to outsell the growth rate of BEVs. And it's probably a reason why non-fully BEV EVs are omitted from this program. This surge in interest signifies a crucial moment in the transformation of the automotive industry. There is no surge. As I said, if any surge is going on, and it is very minor, it is in mild hybrids and a few plug-in hybrids, which are the latest trend in the last probably 6 months.
But there are still challenges. One of the challenges is the upfront cost.
Chris Bowen has outlined a new $150 million scheme designed to make electric cars a possibility for low-income Australians.
Providing Australians with more choice. It's all about choices.
No, it's not. If they wanted to provide Australians with more choices, and 8 million, according to the survey, are going to buy an EV, a BEV only, in the next 5 years, then this program is not going to put any dent in that sales amount. It is targeting a very small percentage of the population. If you are just essential service workers, or you are earning less than 100,000 a year, which most people are not, then this government has really limited the people who are able to access the program. Really limited. I doubt whether they'll ever get to put up the $150 million they're bragging about. And where's this $150 million going? It's not going to the people who buy EVs that are under $55,000, or that might not have come up yet. It's not going to go to the people who buy EVs. It's going to go to the bank. And really, how much is going to the bank? They don't say. I'll talk about that a bit later as we go on. But what they're doing is just propping up the bank by telling them to use a 5.5% interest rate. And they've got some secret agreement as to how much the bank wants, which would be the difference. And out of that difference, that's where they begin to spend their $150 million. This is doomed to be a failed program, but the government will rake in money and not help many people at all. It's trying to look good, it's trying to look green, and it's fooling the gullible.
From January 1, the government will offer electric car loans with the Commonwealth Bank at 5.4% interest, a discount, the government says, of about 5%.
I just looked up what's the going rate today, 20th of December 2024, and I got a list of half a dozen articles that you can also look up. Just key in the search terms that I did and read these articles to your heart's content. But anyway, we'll start with the first one, Rate City. Car loan comparison. Find and compare car loans across Australia with rates from 5.66%. That's only 0.26% above this special deal. And this is for any car at any price and anybody, as long as they meet lending criteria. This doesn't have the big restrictions, and this doesn't have the government propping up the bank. Government spending nothing. Banks are just wanting 5.66%. So we'll go on to the next one. What is a good car loan rate? Shopping around for the best car loan can save you thousands in interest and fees. Right now, car loan rates range from around 3% to 12%. So you can see at the bottom end, we're 2.4% lower than what the Commonwealth Bank has made a deal with the government on. I haven't looked into where these 3% loans are, but if they start at 3%, they're starting well under this rate. Here's CanStars. Car loan interest rates comparison. Make a car loan comparison from 60 plus providers, comparing rates, fees, loan features, and more at Australia's biggest comparison website. Oh, unfortunately, that says nothing. Oh well, it was just in between. Here we go. The next one is best car loan rates from 6.24%, 70 plus lenders. So there you go. 6.24 is less than 1% over the deal with the Commonwealth Bank, which means this claim of a 5% discount is a contrived joke. And the government quite often contrives and pulls our leg as it feathers its nest. Now I've put a red box around this one, because this is the Commonwealth Bank itself. Car loans for new cars. interest rates 6.49% to 10.49%. So what the government has done is said, just say you always are at 10.49% and we'll drop it to 5.4 and claim the 5% discount. That's the little trick, okay? But you can walk into the Commonwealth Bank and negotiate a 6.49% rate. It says they give them out. All you got to do is make a case. And once again, I'm sure the government isn't coughing up 5% to the Commonwealth Bank. I'm sure the Commonwealth Bank is happy to do this deal at a total of 6.49%. So the government will be coughing up 1.09% on every deal. 1.09%. Now, let's work that out. Just call it 1% to round. And we'll work that out when you think about how much tax they're getting on a car that's $55,000. And you can barely get a half-decent car for $55,000 when it comes to EVs. As I said, you can buy ICE cars for $25,000 these days. There are some, brand new. You can buy the new ones for $25,000 and the government gets their tax on $25,000. They're baiting people to pay $55,000 for an EV, which is $30,000 more than what they could have spent, and the government gets more than double the tax because of the EV sale. Now they get more than double the tax, and yet they're going to pay 1% to the banks on each deal, 1% of the interest. The sucker that buys the car is still paying full price for the car, and they're still paying a decent interest that they could, as the articles show, maybe even beat if they get that 3% one, but certainly get around the ballpark and not have all this nonsense. And the last one, Westpac Bank, they're looking pretty expensive, 7.69% to 14.4%. You'd have to be a mug to pay 14.4%. In fact, I reckon you'd have to be a mug to pay 7.69%. By the looks of these articles, anything over 6% these days is a bit of a rip-off. But I noticed just at the last bit there, 8.49% for an electric/hybrid. At least you can get a hybrid. And if it's 8.49, call it 8.5, you're only 3.1% worse off. So that's not 5% either. But that one's still pretty bad.
To qualify, the buyer has to earn less than $100,000 a year or be an essential worker like a nurse, police officer or teacher. And the car they're buying must be worth less than $55,000. That means brand new Teslas are included.
People from anywhere around the world, but especially Australians who should be interested in this, can look up the price of Teslas online. And they can look up the price of all EVs online. BEVs, there's nothing else you can choose. They can even go on carsales.com and look at second-hand ones if they like. But a brand new Tesla at $55,000 will get you the bottom of the range Model 3. That's all. Nothing else. You would scrape in maybe at the bottom of the range Model 3. And that's what I call having to settle. There are so many people who would want to pay a bit more than $55,000. Have a look at what the average price of an EV in Australia is new. They would want to pay somewhere closer to that average. And they are already excluded from this, and they just go, blow it. Look at all the 60, 70 odd lenders that are saying that they can do around this percentage rate anyway. I'm looking elsewhere. I'm going to find a loan. The government is offering something to make themselves look good. Get a few suckers in that will bring them in some higher taxes than selling a Kia Picanto or a Suzuki Swift or some of the Chinese brands that are right down at the bottom end of the price range. It's almost like they're getting free advertising, making themselves look good, making a couple of bucks, not serving any of the people properly. I'm almost disgusted. I'd be hard-pressed to find a nurse or a policeman that's under $100,000 too. Maybe I should look it up later.
Of course, electric cars and plug-in hybrids are already selling in record numbers, over 100,000 this year alone.
I'm going to show you a little bit of a snippet from a great video that I recommend you watch. John Cadogan is one of my favourite YouTube presenters. He is highly intelligent, knows what he's talking about, and this is how he begins the video he made on this topic. the statistic of over 100,000 EVs sold this year alone. Enjoy it.
One of our nation's, personal opinion, most adept at straw-clutching lobby groups, the venerable Electric Vehicle Council of Australia, has proudly just announced an entirely fake milestone of sales misinformation, seemingly. 100,000. Imagine that. Thank God, at last. However, problematically, the actual number of battery EVs, like Teslas, for example, and all the rest that are built that way with just batteries and electric motors, the actual number of those which have actually been sold, i.e. the ones that don't have any kind of combustion engine, is just 82,960. So, to me, this looks like an even more epic liberty with the truth than is usual for a lobby group. Are they really that desperate?
By all means, watch that whole video.
What those in the industry say we really need is more charging infrastructure. This is where $150 million could really make a difference. That's 15,000 chargers the government could fit around Australia for this same budget. Now that's going to help not only future buyers of electric vehicles, but everybody on the road at the moment.
Well, that works out to $10,000 to install each EV charger. I'll have to look up how many cars there are on the road in Australia versus how many petrol Bowsers, and then compare with how many EVs are in Australia and how many chargers there are. But I've got a caveat here that is very important. Very few Bowsers are out of order. You can stop everywhere and you rarely ever find an out of order Bowser. My experience driving my EV is that probably, and I'm only guessing here, 20 to 25% of rare chargers work at all. They're broken. And I have this theory that the government pays people, private companies, to install the Bowsers. They make a killing from that. And then when it breaks, they don't want to maintain it. They're not getting much out of the electricity it provides. So they just go, hang it, we'll leave it broken for ages. And I have seen broken chargers and come back months later and they're still broken. They don't fix them, generally speaking. There's something wrong with this. If the government's spending $150 million, well, they're not at this stage. That's what this guy's saying that they should be doing. But they are claiming later that it's $40 million. If the government's spending $40 million, they should own $40 million worth of chargers around the country. They own none, and they should maintain them. They don't. So this money is just getting wasted on private companies who make a killing on the installation and then are disinterested in maintaining them. It's another way the government messes up. Throw the money out, make companies rich, and have the people who own EVs suffering badly. The government needs to do better, but I doubt they ever can. They fail at everything they do. But they make a lot of money for themselves with every scheme that they introduce. That's the one common outcome. The people get ripped just about every time, and the government doesn't know how to fairly distribute money among the people. At this stage, I've been jumping on the government for how inept they are, but Nine News has to take some responsibility for passing on statistics that are unfounded. If they had done a little bit of homework, John Cadogan came out with this video a good week before Nine News ran this particular piece. I just thought journalists were supposed to do a little bit of research when they were handing out stats. It looks like they were just sucked in hook, line and sinker on that one.
The government says it's spending $40 million to ensure fast chargers dot major highways, but drivers will soon want more.
DC chargers go far beyond what the typical home can afford. They start around $100,000 to install, and you need a monster power supply, so you're unlikely to install one at your home. And if you charge from them too often, your car battery will degrade faster. So you should charge at home most of the time because it's cheaper and better for your car. But fast DC chargers are great for quickly topping up on long trips. These DC chargers are much faster than your home charging. Where a hardwired home charger typically charges from 7 to up to 22 kilowatts, a DC charger can charge from 50 kilowatts like these ones right up to 350 kilowatts if you're using one of the higher powered models. But that does depend on what your car can handle. My Mini, for example, can charge at a maximum of 50 kilowatts DC. The Tesla charges at about 100 kilowatts DC. One thing to bear in mind with DC charging is that you won't get those speeds for the whole charge. As the battery fills up, the speed will slow right down, and that's to protect your battery. If you're charging on the run, it's a good idea to plan to only have to charge to up to 80 or 90%, and that'll save you hanging around at the charger for ages. These ChargeFox DC chargers behind me can charge any recent model EV. I've just opened up the ChargeFox app to charge the Tesla from the ChargeFox charger, and it's telling me that the charger is out of order. Now, unfortunately, that is far too common with non-Tesla fast chargers. I know for a fact that this particular charger here has been out of order for something like 3 months.
So if the government has money to spend, putting that cost into infrastructure would be a very smart way to do it.
Chris Kohler, 9 News.
Well, I don't see putting $150 million straight into infrastructure being much better. It's a little bit of an improvement, but what it does is the rich who have EVs and can afford them, they're not rich, but those people who aren't struggling with the rising costs of living we're always getting, that's a minority group. I think it's around 3% of all people travelling. If they get the $150 million worth of benefits, it's hardly any better than this scheme. We need a government who can think up the right way to distribute money and have the public at heart, not tricks to raise revenue for themselves. Well, that's all for me. Bye for now. Stay safe.